Every ending is a beautiful neon requiem, a glowing tribute to the journey we have shared and the lessons we've learned together. Join us as we close this chapter with style and prepare for the next big revelation. Subscribe today and witness the beauty of resolution.
Donna, Dung Ta, Jum Sas Ton Tron, Claire, Danny, Richard, Bear, Nora, Marcus, Kevin, Garrett, Phyllis, Lily, Howard, Dolores, Renee, Barb, Travis, Sandra, Doisa, Te, Dunta, Timmahi Hunter, Mara, Nerita, Joel, Groom, Petra, Sister Maid of Honor, Aunt Sylvia, Villain, Dex, photographer/friend, Cora, Joel's hidden sister. The moment my maid of honor grabbed my arm in the hallway, I already knew it wasn't about a dress malfunction or a fallen centerpiece. Her grip was too tight. Her face was wrong. We were 40 seconds from the door's opening. I could hear the string quartet on the other side of the wall. The same song I had chosen 8 months ago, sitting at my kitchen table in my pajamas, crying happy tears because I thought I had finally found the man who made everything make sense. 40 seconds from walking toward him, my sister pulled me back into the alcove beside the coat closet and pressed my phone into my hand, screen up. Her mouth was moving, but I couldn't hear her over the music. I looked down. There was a text from a number I didn't recognize. No name, just a photo. It was me, taken from outside the window of the bridal suite at the inn where I had gotten ready that morning. I was standing in my dress, my back to the camera, laughing at something my mother had said. I remembered that moment. It was 9:42 in the morning. I had been holding a mimosa. The window had been closed. Whoever took that picture had been standing in the garden below, zoomed in and waited. The message underneath the photo said, "Walk away from this wedding. You don't know what you're walking into. If you go through those doors, you will lose everything. And I mean everything. My name is Mara. And that was supposed to be the best Saturday of my life. I'm 38 years old. I work as a hospital administrator in Columbus, Ohio. I am not dramatic. I am not the kind of woman who has crises. I plan things. I make spreadsheets. I have a color-coded calendar and a savings account I'm genuinely proud of. I tell you this because I need you to understand that what happened that day was not something I invited or imagined. It was real, and it changed everything I thought I knew about the people closest to me. Joel and I met 3 years ago at a mutual friend's backyard barbecue. He was quiet in a room full of loud people, which is exactly how I noticed him. We ended up standing by the drink cooler for 2 hours talking about nothing important, and I drove home thinking about him the entire way. He called 2 days later. We got engaged 14 months ago at a cabin in Vermont, just the two of us, snow falling outside, a ring he had clearly thought about for a long time. I want you to hold on to that image, because it matters to what comes next. The wedding was small by choice. 63 people at a restored barn venue outside the city. My mother had flown in from Phoenix. My sister Petra was my maid of honor. My Aunt Sylvia, my father's older sister, was seated in the second row on my side, wearing a dusty rose blazer she had called me about 3 times to make sure it wouldn't clash with the bridesmaids. Our photographer was a man named Dex, who had been Joel's college roommate and who I had known by extension for almost as long as I had known Joel. He was calm and professional, and I trusted him completely. So, when Petra pulled me into that alcove, it was Dex who appeared behind her 30 seconds later. He had come looking for me when he noticed I hadn't started walking. His face was careful. The kind of careful that means someone is trying not to alarm you while being very alarmed themselves. "Did you see it?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "There's more," he said. He tilted his own phone toward me. He had received a message from the same unknown number, sent to his professional photography contact listed on his website. It said, "She doesn't know what her fiancé is hiding. Do her a favor. Show her before it's too late." Attached to his message was a video. I pressed play with fingers that felt like they belonged to someone else. The video was shot from across a restaurant. Low light, booths along the wall, the kind of place you go when you don't want to be seen. Joel was sitting across from a woman. They were leaning toward each other over the table. She had dark hair, shoulder length, and she was crying. Joel had his hand over hers. The video was maybe 40 seconds long. It cut off before anything else happened. No context. No audio. Just 40 seconds of my fiancé holding another woman's hand in a dark restaurant 2 weeks before our wedding. I felt my stomach drop through the floor. Petra had her hand on my back. "Breathe," she said. I couldn't. I was doing the math in my head. 2 weeks ago, Joel had told me he had a work dinner. Project manager from a vendor company, he said. Running late, don't wait up. I had not waited up. I had fallen asleep watching something on my laptop and woken up when he came home and kissed me on the forehead. I had believed him completely. Another message came in while I was standing there, same unknown number. It said, "Ask him where he was on March 3rd. March 3rd. I turned that date over in my mind like a coin. March 3rd was a Sunday this year. Joel had told me he was driving to Cincinnati to see an old friend from grad school. He'd been gone from 7 in the morning until almost 11 at night. I had spent the day with Petra at a bridal shower for a coworker and hadn't thought twice about it. Now I was thinking about it. Hard. Dex spoke first. "Someone is doing this deliberately. The number is masked." I looked it up. "It's a VoIP line, basically a burner. This isn't random." "Who else is in the building right now?" Petra asked him. "Everyone. All 63 guests, the caterers, the venue staff." Whoever sent this could be standing 20 feet away on the other side of that door. The string quartet was still playing. I could hear it faintly through the walls, still running through the processional loop, because no one had signaled them to change. Somewhere in that room, 63 people were sitting in wooden chairs waiting for me to appear. My mother was probably starting to fidget. Joel was standing at the altar, probably starting to wonder. I thought about his face when he looked at me. Not the face from the video, the face from our ordinary life. The way he looked up from whatever he was reading when I walked into a room like he had been waiting for me specifically and was glad I arrived. I shook my head. "This has to be a setup." "Maybe," Dex said. "But you can't go through those doors without knowing what you're walking into. If this is real, you need to know. If it's fake, you need to know that too." Another message hit my phone. "He has a sister. Ask him why he's never mentioned her." I stared at those words for a long moment. Joel was an only child. He had told me on our second date. He said it as a simple fact, without weight, the way you say you're a morning person or you don't like cilantro. His parents had passed, his father when he was in college, his mother 6 years ago. No siblings. No extended family nearby. Just him. He had said just him, and I had felt a specific kind of tenderness for him because of it. I had Petra. I had my mother. I had cousins and aunts, and the particular noise of a family that shows up. He had none of that. Or so I thought. Petra took the phone from my hand and read the message. She didn't say anything. "I need to talk to him," I said. "Before anything else happens, I need to look him in the eye." Dex nodded. "I'll go get him. Tell him there's a problem with the flowers or something. Get him to come back here without making a scene." He slipped back out into the venue. Petra and I stood in that alcove, and I noticed my hands were shaking, not from fear exactly, from the specific, awful feeling of not knowing which version of a story is true. She put her arms around me. "No matter what," she said, "I'm right here." I held on to her for a moment and then straightened up, because I am not the kind of woman who falls apart in a coat closet, even when every rational reason to fall apart is presenting itself at once. Joel appeared in the hallway 2 minutes later. He was in his suit, gray with a dark green tie I had picked out with him in February. He looked confused and slightly concerned, the expression of a man who had been pulled away from his own wedding ceremony with no explanation. When he saw my face, something shifted in his. It went from confused to something I couldn't immediately name. I held up my phone. "I need you to explain this to me." He looked at the photo. Then the messages. Then the video. He watched the whole 40 seconds without expression, and when it was over, he handed my phone back and pressed both hands flat against the hallway wall behind him and exhaled slowly. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay. That's not an explanation. I know. He looked at me. The woman in the video is my sister. The word landed strangely, like something thrown into still water. You told me you were an only child. I know I did. He closed his eyes briefly. Her name is Cora. She's 4 years younger than me. We had the same father, different mothers. I didn't find out she existed until 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Right around when we met. She reached out to me through a genealogy site, one of those DNA registry things. She had taken a test looking for medical history information, and I came up as a close match. He paused. I didn't know what to do with it at first. I sat on it for months. Then I met her in person, and she was real, Mara. She was a real person who had grown up without a father, just like I had, and she had no one either. I was listening, but I was also doing a specific kind of arithmetic in my head. 3 years he had carried this, through our entire relationship, through the engagement, through every conversation we'd had about family, about what our own family might look like someday. He had never said a word. Why didn't you tell me? He was quiet for a moment. Not the quiet of someone stalling, the quiet of someone who has rehearsed an answer and doesn't trust it anymore. Because Cora asked me not to. At first, she had reasons. He stopped, looked at the floor. Her situation is complicated. She had a relationship years ago with someone who became dangerous. She's been careful about her information. Who knows where she is? Who knows she exists? She didn't know me well enough yet to trust that the people in my life were safe. And March 3rd, she needed help with something legal, a notarization, some paperwork. I drove down to Cincinnati because that's where she's been staying. He met my eyes. The restaurant in the video, that was 2 weeks ago. She was upset because of what I'm about to tell you, and I was trying to help her figure out what to do. What were you going to tell me? He was quiet again, and this time Petra spoke from behind me. Joel, she said, and her voice was not unkind, but it was serious. Whatever it is, now is the time. He nodded. When our grandfather died last year, my father's father, he left a trust. I'm the named beneficiary, but the trust attorney notified me 6 months ago that there's a secondary provision. If I marry, my spouse and I jointly control the trust funds, all of it. How much are we talking about? He said a number I was not prepared for. Enough that I understood immediately why someone might want this wedding not to happen. The trust has other interested parties, he said. Family members who were cut out of the will. They've been contesting it for 2 years. If I marry before the contest is settled, the funds move into a joint marital account and become significantly harder to claw back. My attorney told me the challengers might try to find leverage to delay or prevent the marriage. I stood very still. Someone in your family is behind those messages, I said. I think so, yes. Who knew about the trust? My grandfather's attorney, my attorney, and the family members who were contesting it. He paused. And Cora, because the original will listed her as a secondary beneficiary and she was notified when the contest began. Something moved in the back of my mind. A small, cold thing. Cora knew, I said slowly. Mara, she knew everything. She knew about the trust. She knew about the marriage. She knew details about me that she could only know if someone close to us told her. Or if she'd been paying attention, he said carefully. A new message appeared on my phone. Check the guest list. 3rd row, left side, gray blazer. My whole body went cold. I looked at Dex. Who's sitting in the 3rd row on the left? He pulled up the seating chart on his tablet. He looked up. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. I already knew. I walked out of the hallway and into the back of the venue before anyone could stop me. The guests turned. The music faltered. I heard my mother say my name. I kept walking until I was standing in the 3rd row on the left, looking down at my Aunt Sylvia in her dusty rose blazer, and she looked up at me with an expression that started as confusion and slid into something else, something tight and caught. You sent those messages, I said. She said nothing. You were in the garden this morning. You took that photo through the window. My voice was very steady, which surprised me. You had a burner phone. You sent the messages to my phone and to Dex's business line. I looked at her. You knew about Cora. How? She lifted her chin. Around us, 63 people had gone completely silent. Your grandfather came to me before he changed his will, she said. Her voice was low and controlled. He told me everything. The illegitimate granddaughter, the trust, the whole arrangement. I was supposed to be in that will. My mother, your grandfather's wife, she put decades into that family. When he died, we got nothing. Because he wanted to give everything to Joel and a secret child nobody knew about. Her eyes went hard. You were going to walk down that aisle and lock all of us out permanently. Us, I repeated. There are 4 of us challenging the will. I'm not alone in this. I thought about the messages. The photo through the window. The video of Joel and Cora, which someone had taken from that restaurant while they were having a private conversation. The level of surveillance required to obtain that footage. This had not been a last-minute impulse. This had been months in the planning. My mother appeared at my elbow. She had been in the second row, 3 seats to the right, and she had heard every word. She looked at Sylvia with the specific expression of a woman who has run out of patience and is no longer managing it. Sylvia, she said, you need to leave. This is a family matter. My daughter's wedding is not your battleground. Her voice didn't rise. It never rose. That was always what made my mother's anger so effective. You need to leave this building right now, or I am going to call the police and let them decide whether sending threatening messages to a bride on her wedding day meets the bar for criminal harassment. Which in Ohio, I suspect it does. Sylvia stood. She looked at me one more time, and I could see something in her face that might have been shame, buried under a long time of telling herself she was entitled to something she'd been denied. She walked toward the exit without speaking again. The room stayed very quiet. I turned around and Joel was standing at the end of the aisle, still in his gray suit, still wearing the green tie. He looked at me the way he always looked at me when I walked into a room. Like he had been waiting and was glad I arrived. I walked toward him, not because everything was resolved. Not because the trust contest was settled or Cora's situation was fixed, or my family hadn't just watched something very strange unfold at what was supposed to be a nice barn wedding in October. I walked toward him because when I looked at his face, I could see the man who had sat beside a drink cooler for 2 hours and called me 2 days later. I could see someone who had made a mistake in keeping secrets, who had reasons, who was not the person those messages wanted me to believe he was. I stopped in front of him. The officiant was watching us with very wide eyes. You should have told me, I said. I know. About all of it, Cora, the trust, the legal fight, all of it. I know. We can't start a marriage with me not knowing the full picture of your life. I know that too. He exhaled. I'm sorry, Mara, not the kind of sorry that's just a word. I mean, I genuinely failed you by keeping that from you, and I don't have an excuse that's better than the truth, which is that I was afraid that the second I told you, all of it would become your problem, and I loved you too much to put it on you before I had to. I looked at him for a long moment. That's not your call to make, I said. When you're in a partnership with someone, you don't get to decide what burdens they're ready for. You decide it together. You're right. I'm going to need you to understand that, not just agree with me, but actually understand it. I do, he said. I'm ready to show you. Behind me, someone started clapping. Then someone else. Then, in the specific and somewhat chaotic way that emotion moves through a room of people who have been sitting in suspense for 15 minutes, the whole room filled with it, and my mother was crying, and Petra was laughing through tears, somewhere behind me, and the string quartet, bless them, tentatively started playing again. We did not go forward with the ceremony that day. I want to be clear about that. I had meant what I said. We couldn't start our marriage in the middle of unfinished business, with a legal contest still pending, and a sister neither of us had properly introduced into our lives, and a genuine conversation we hadn't had yet about what honesty looks like when things get complicated. I stood in front of those 63 people and I told them the truth. I said we were postponing, not canceling. I said something had come to light that we needed to address together, and we were going to address it, and when we stood in front of them again, it was going to be without anything hidden behind us. Some people were confused. A few were emotional. The caterers, to their enormous credit, rolled with it completely and served dinner anyway, and it ended up being the most honest wedding reception anyone had ever attended, full of real conversations and people actually talking to each other. That was 8 months ago. The trust contest was settled. It took 6 weeks and a lot of calls between attorneys, but the will held. The 4 challengers, including Sylvia, received a negotiated sum that satisfied the legal requirements and closed the case. It wasn't what they wanted. It also wasn't nothing. Joel's attorney said it was the cleanest resolution possible, given the circumstances. Cora came to Thanksgiving. She sat next to my mother, who asked her approximately 400 questions about her life and fed her 2 extra servings of everything. She and Petra exchanged numbers. She is quiet and careful and very funny when she trusts you. And I understand now why Joel loved her before he knew how to explain her. The conversation Joel and I had, the real one, took several evenings and was uncomfortable in the specific way that honest conversations about patterns are always uncomfortable. I said things about needing to be treated as a partner in hard times, not a passenger to be shielded. He said things about fear and control that took courage to say out loud. We didn't resolve it in one sitting. That's not how it works. We set a new date for March. The same barn, the same 63 people, a few new additions. I thought a lot about Sylvia in the weeks afterward, about what it takes to sit in a folding chair at your niece's wedding with a burner phone in your purse, watching everything through the lens of what you believe you're owed. It didn't make me angry after a while. It made me tired and a little sad. She had so much access to genuine connection in that room, to me, to my mother, to a family that would have included her without condition, and she burned it trying to claim something that was never going to be hers. I don't say that to be self-righteous. I say it because I think about it when I'm tempted to hold things so tightly that I can't see what I'm actually holding. Joel proposed again in our kitchen on a Thursday night in January. He wasn't on one knee. He was washing dishes, and I was sitting on the counter eating crackers and reading something on my phone, and he turned around and said, "I want to marry you, not because of a trust or a legal timeline or any of it. I want to marry you because you stood in front of 63 people and told the truth when it would have been so much easier not to, and I want to spend my life next to someone like that." I said yes. Again. And this time nothing else happened. If any part of this story felt real to you, it's because it was. These things happen in families. These things happen in the spaces between people who love each other and aren't always honest about the complicated parts. If you're watching this, I want to ask you something genuinely, not as a way to fill a comment section, but because I'm actually curious. Have you ever had a moment where you had to choose between the easy version of a story and the true one? Tell me in the comments. And tell me where you're watching from, because this community comes from everywhere, and that still amazes me every single time. Subscribe if you want to hear what comes next. There's always something that comes next. I've thought about that hallway a lot since then. The coat closet alcove, the string quartet looping the same song on the other side of the wall, my hands shaking around a phone showing me a photo of myself I hadn't known was taken. What I keep coming back to isn't the fear I felt in that moment, or the anger that came later when I understood what Sylvia had done. What I keep coming back to is the choice. There's a version of that day where I don't stop, where Petra grabs my arm and I shake her off because I'm already emotionally committed, already in the dress, already too far in to change course. I have seen people make that choice and I understand the pull of it. You have planned something for months. People have flown in from other states. The flowers are perfect. You tell yourself that whatever this is, you'll deal with it later, after. You walk through the door. I didn't walk through the door, and I don't think I deserve a medal for that, but I do think there's something worth saying about what made it possible to stop. I stopped because I had spent enough years learning to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. Not a dramatic kind of courage. The ordinary, daily kind, the kind you build slowly by making yourself have hard conversations before they become crises, by not letting resentment collect in the corners of your relationships, by choosing to ask the next honest question, even when the answer might cost you something. That's not a quality you suddenly have on a big day. It's something you either practiced or you didn't. Joel had not practiced it, not fully. He had loved me, I believe that without question, but he had protected me from his complications the way people protect things they're afraid of losing, by keeping them separate, sealed off, managed. What he hadn't understood, and what we had to spend months actually working through, is that protecting someone from the truth of your life is not love. It's control dressed up as love. The intention can be gentle and the impact can still be damage. And Sylvia, I think about her too. More than is probably useful. She sat in that room with a plan she had built over months, convinced she was correcting an injustice. She wasn't wrong that she had been treated unfairly. Wills are complicated, family wounds are real, and being cut out of something you expected to inherit is a genuine loss. But the path she chose, the surveillance, the burner phone, the messages designed to detonate someone else's life to reroute what she believed was hers, that path doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from years of choosing bitterness over every other available option, until bitterness is the only tool left in the kit. What I've learned, and I mean actually learned, not just understood intellectually, is that your choices build the person you become. Not in one dramatic moment, but in the accumulated weight of every small decision about whether you are honest or evasive, whether you face things or avoid them, whether you take responsibility or deflect it. Sylvia became someone capable of what she did, through years of small turnings away from the harder, better path. Joel became someone capable of keeping a secret the same way. And I became someone capable of stopping in a hallway and choosing the truth the same way, through practice, not accident. That's the part nobody talks about. We want character to be innate, something you either have or you don't, because that lets us off the hook from the ongoing work of building it. But it isn't, it's built. Day by day, choice by choice, in moments so small you don't recognize them as formative until much later. The life Joel and I are building now is not easier than it would have been if none of this had happened. But it is more real. And I'll take real over easy every single time.